Joseph Kony is self-appointed messiah of the Lord's Resistance Army that led to rebel organization responsible for Africa's longest-running armed war. He has kidnapped almost 30,000 youngsters, forcing the males to serve as soldiers and the girls to serve as sex slaves. In the guise of his spiritual abilities, Kony commands his LRA members to kidnap, threaten, destroy, and murder. Joseph Kony was born in 1961 to farmers Louis Obol and Nora Oting in Odek, a community east of Gulu in northern Uganda. He belongs to a Choli tribe. He was the youngest or the second youngest of the family's 6 children. Kony had nice connection with his brother, although he was fast to respond to a fight and would frequently turn to physical violence when faced. His father worked as a Catholic lay catechist, while his mother was an Anglican. Kony was an altar boy until 1976. Having never completed elementary school. At the age of 15, he dropped out of school. After Alice Alma's Holy Spirit movement in 1995, Kony rose to prominence in Acholi land. During the Ugandan Bush War, Yoweri Museveni and his National Resistance Army overthrew Acholi President Tito Okello, which resulted in mass cattle robbery, rape, home burning, genocide, and murder by Museveni's army. Following the crimes committed by Museveni's NRA, Joseph Kony founded the Lord's Resistance Army. The insurgents also resulted in the establishment of a concentration camp in northern Uganda, which housed nearly 2 million people. Many individuals were killed when the government used helicopter gunship to burn down people's homes. In the northern part of the country, there were forced relocation. International Campaign, on the other hand, advocated for the dismantling of the camps and the people's return to their original communities. The Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, is a Christian extremist organization which operated in northern Uganda, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It was founded in 1987 by Joseph Kony during the Ugandan Civil War. It appears to largely function as a personality cult of its leader Joseph Kony, a self-declared prophet whose leadership has earned him the nickname Africa's David Koresh. Kony has been accused of kidnapping and recruiting child soldiers. For the past 10 years, the LRA has been fighting the government NRA in Uganda and South Sudan. While ostensibly fighting government tyranny, the LRA is accused of turning the Kony-owned followers, ostensibly in order to purify the Acholi people and transform Uganda into a theocracy. Kony claims to be God representative and claims to be visited by the group of 13 spirits from across the world. The organization claimed to be constructing a theocratic state based on the 10 Commandments and indigenous Acholi culture, and is a syncretic blend of mysticism, Acholi nationalism, and heterodox Christian fundamentalism. Kony met John Egeland, the United Nations Under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, in November 2006. In a 2006 interview with Kony for Journeyman Pictures, he declares, quote, "I am a freedom fighter, not a terrorist. We don't have any children, we only have combatants." Following a sealed indictment, International Criminal Court (ICC) revealed in October 2016 that arrest warrants had been issued for 5 members of the Lord's Resistance Army for crimes against humanity. The next day, Uganda Defense Minister Amama Mbabazi said that Kony, his deputy Vincent Oti, and LRA commanders Raska Lukuya, Okoto Diambo, and Dominic Ongwen were all named in the warrants. The Ugandan army assassinated Lukuya on August 12, 2016. According to military officials, on October 2, 2017, the BBC got word that Oti had been murdered in Kony residence. Some of Kony's supporters, as well as some of his adversaries, think he was possessed by spirits. Kony tells his child soldiers that a cross on their chest drowned in oil will keep them safe from the gunshots. He is a supporter of polygamy and is said to have had 60 women and a father of 42 children. In an interview, Kony said that he and the LRA are fighting for the 10 Commandments and defended his conduct, saying, quote, "Is it bad? It is not against human rights, and that commandment was not given by Joseph. It was not given by LRA. No, those commandments were given by God." In 2008, in response to Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni's invitation for telephone peace talks, he remarked, quote, "I will communicate with Museveni through the Holy Spirits and not through the telephone." Joseph Kony fled to Uganda in 1989 before the rebellion began. However, he was eventually apprehended by Ugandan authorities. He was released in 1992 after the authorities determined that he was no longer a threat. Throughout the insurgency, the Ugandan military has sought to assassinate Kony. Former LRA fighters have been engaged to explore distant parts of the Central African Republic, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, where Kony was last seen in an attempt by Uganda to locate him. Following the September 11 attacks, the US labeled the LRA as a terrorist organization. According to Executive Order 13224, the US Department of State designated Joseph Kony as a specially designated global terrorist in August 2008, a designation that entails financial and other repercussions. President George W. Bush approved an order to the United States Africa Command in November 2008, instructing it to offer financial and logistical support to the Ugandan government during the failed Garamba attack of 2008 to 2009, codenamed Operation Lightning Thunder. Although no US forces were actively involved, 17 US advisors and analysts helped Ugandan military counterparts with intelligence, equipment, and gasoline. Kony was driven out of his forest camp by the onslaught, but he was not caught. A total of 100 children were rescued. President Barack Obama of the United States signed the Lord's Resistance Army Disarmament and Northern Uganda Recovery Act into law in May 2010, aiming at putting an end to Kony and the LRA. President Barack Obama sent a strategy brief to Congress in November 2010 requesting additional resources to disarm Kony and the LRA. President Barack Obama authorized the deployment of around 100 combat-ready US troops to Central Africa in October 2011. Their mission is to assist regional troops in removing Kony and other top LRA figures of the battlefield. Obama noted in a letter to Congress, quote, "Although the US forces are combat equipped, they will only be providing information, advice, and assistance to partner nation forces, and they will not themselves engage LRA forces unless necessary for self-defense." On April 3, 2013, the Obama administration announced a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to Kony, Ongwen, and Odhiambo's capture, transfer, or convictions. The African Union declared on March 23, 2012 they will deploy 5,000 soldiers to join the hunt for rebel commanders Joseph Kony and neutralize him while isolating the LRA faction guilty for 2,600 civilian deaths since 2008. This multinational task group is said to comprise soldiers from Uganda, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, all of which have been affected by Kony's reign of terror over the years. Prior to this revelation, Ugandan forces had been largely involved in the search for Kony. The army launched their hunt in South Sudan on March 24, 2012, and it will continue until Kony is apprehended. In early March 2012, a 30-minute documentary named Kony 2012, produced by US filmmaker Jason Russell for the advocacy group Invisible Children Inc., drew a lot of attention to Joseph Kony and LRA. The goal of the project was to raise awareness about Kony in order to enhance US engagement in this situation and have Kony arrested before the end of 2012. According to a poll, more than half of young adult Americans heard about Kony 2012 in the days after the video was released, and a resolution condemning Kony and supporting US assistance in fighting the LRA was introduced in the US Senate several weeks after the video was released, and it was passed several months later. However, Kony 2012 have been chastised for oversimplifying the LRA battle and omitting to mention that Kony had already been expelled from Uganda 6 years before the video was released. Dominic Ongwen was a significant member of the LRA and functioned as one of Kony's top aides. He was kidnapped as a boy and became a soldier in the LRA, rising through the ranks of the group. In January 2015, Ongwen surrendered to CRA authorities, dealing a huge blow to Kony's movement. The occurrence, according to Ugandan Army spokesperson Eddie Ankunda, puts the LRA in the most vulnerable positions and leaves just Kony standing. Only Kony remained at large among the 5 LRA commanders accused by the ICC in 2004. With just a few hundred men left loyal to him, it was assumed that he would not be able to elude arrest for much longer. Ongwen was found guilty of 61 charges of crimes against humanity and war crimes by the International Criminal Court in February 2021. The hunt for Kony and his group was called off in April 2012, with the Ugandan spokesperson declaring that the LRA no longer possessed a threat to us as Uganda. His force was estimated to have shrunk to around 100 soldiers at the time. Sasha Lesnev, Deputy Director of Policy Eddie George Kony, backed the century, which aimed to halt mass atrocities in Africa's harshest war zones, told Fox News that multiple special forces, operation and defection efforts in Uganda have resulted in a dramatic decrease in LRA numbers. Quote, but Joseph Kony, his sons, and the LRA remain a threat to civilians, mainly in Eastern Central African Republic, Reznev stressed. The LRA also continues to poach elephants and trade ivory, as well as trade gold and diamonds for ammunition and supplies. That said, it's now not as powerful as some other groups. According to a spokeswoman for Invisible Children, despite the fact that Kony is no longer in the news, the LRA continues to pose a daily threat to residents. In 2009, the LRA abducted more than 222 people. At least half of them were children, according to Invisible Children's conflict tracker, with at least 49 still missing. Several additional US-based sources inform Fox News that private contracting organizations have frequently determined Kony's exact whereabouts in recent years in the hope of recovering the multi-million-dollar prize, but have been instructed to back off by the Western powers that be. Some speculate that it's because the more Christian-oriented organizations keep Islamic insurgents at bay, while others argue that Kony's area of operation is free of jihadist terrorists. According to a Western intelligence source familiar with the region, Kony was diagnosed with serious health problems roughly 2 years ago, most likely due to sexually transmitted illnesses. He apparently sought treatment in Khartoum, Sudan's capital, in January 2021. Certain Ugandan news outlets say that Joseph Kony has died as a result of infection with the fatal coronavirus sickness. The Ugandan media, meanwhile, state, citing top UPDF army leaders, that the army command is in disarray. Quote, yet to get any information regarding that of the LRA leaders, Joseph Kony, which is widely making rounds on social media. The truth of whether Kony is still alive or dead is unknown at this time. Even if he was caught or killed, it will make much of a difference at this moment because the LRA hasn't claimed any big operations since 2010 and isn't under centralized leadership. It will, however, appear to be a moral win over one of the region's worst monsters. Kony's death or capture now will enable US to proclaim the missions decisively completed.